Yum, yum!
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. This is the third video in the Intro to Plasticity series. In this video, I'm going to make a stun gun inspired from the game Atomic Heart, which I just finished. Not a bad game. Like, combat's pretty cool. Art style's really cool. Dialogue and voiceover is really terrible. You might want to turn that off, but yeah, if it's on sale, definitely pick it up. With this video, you don't necessarily have to watch the first two in the series, but you may want to watch the first one, or at least the first 10 minutes of the first one, just so you're familiar with navigation and selection in Plasticity versus using other apps like Modo or Blender or Maya or something like that. But if you're sort of if you're experienced with these other programs, you could probably start with this one as well. I just won't spend as much time on the basic stuff. This is an image I found at ArtStation of the stun gun. I think we can try to make something, similar to this, inspired from this. The reason I like it, it has a lot of basic shapes in here that are good for a Plasticity intro video. This is by Alexi NoFace, and he has 3D artist at Mundfish in his profile, so I assume this is the actual one in the game. And I hope Alexi's okay with us using this as a sort of a starting point to sort of inspired by his work here. And there's just some good references, so I think it's a good sort of thing to use when making something for the first time. There's some different tips you can have in the game to give you different powers and stuff like that. So I don't know, we'll pick one when we get to that point, but we'll make something like this. That's what we're going to do. So let's jump over to Plasticity. And the first thing I like to do is I like to change the mode to perspective from orthographic. And this is just a lot more like Blender or Modo, which I use, or Maya, that we're used to in the DCC world. In the CAD world, they tend to work in this sort of orthographic looking mode where it's sort of a distorted perspective. Apparently you can zoom in a lot closer and there's some other advantages, but this feels like home to me. So I'm just going to go like this. If you're not, if you use Blender, I think it's a Z up world. If you use Maya or Modo or Houdini, it's typically Y up. And so in Plasticity, it's Z up, which is more of a CAD sort of world thing. So just keep that in mind. We're working with Z up, that blue Z axis there. And also we're going to reduce the grid size. So right now it's at 1 meter. And, by the way, Plasticity, if it's your first time in here, it always starts with the default cube. We're going to delete that in a second. But let's just get our grid down to 0.1 meters. Just click the minus button a couple times. And now we're dealing in centimeters. And then select your cube there. If you look up at the top, these guys right here, these icons are your selection modes. And so 1 is control points, or like vertices basically. 2 would be the equivalent of edges. 3 faces, which would be kind of like polygons. They're not polygons, but similar enough. You can call them faces. And 4 would be bodies, which would be this entire solid here. And then if you press 5, you can do sort of any combination. So you can select like a body plus a face, and things like that. So let's just press 4, select our body here. 4, select our body here, and then press delete, get rid of it. And then you can press Alt and zoom in a little bit. And let's start with the cube. So we'll just click the center cube icon here. And if you click and hold, you can click center box or corner box or 3-point box. Let's just do center box. Click in the middle. It'll snap for you. You don't have to have grid snapping on. It'll just sort of snap for you. Drag out, and you'll see that sort of, hopefully you can see that sort of purplish line. When it's not proportional, it's not there. But when you're proportional and each side is the same, you see that sort of purplish diagonal line I'm dragging along. That means we're making a square. So and again, we're not making these exact measurements though. So just sort of eyeball it, drag out like a decent size square there, click, and then just drag up to get the height. You don't have to get it perfect the first time. You can drag up, click, and you've got, the tool's still active. You still have this box here and you have the tool handles here. You can navigate to try and, get it back in the center a little bit. Pull up the height a little, right? We're just making, and I'll be switching back and forth a lot here. We're just going to make this, start with this little cube right here, this sort of cube right in the middle here with the star on it. That's what we're making. So just, got a decent cube here. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want it to be perfect, you can type in dimensions down here like this. And we have our sort of cube. I think we want it just a little bit long like that. Now when you're done, and this is a little bit different than using Modo or Maya or Blender, typically you drop the tool in those programs. Here, and you don't have to always do that. You can sometimes just sort of really quickly go to another tool here you're always going to confirm your operation. So just hit O. You can click OK down here. You can hit Enter, or you can right click. You do any one of those three things. I usually tend to hit Enter. That's why I do have a stylus. So right click isn't as tactile as a mouse. But there we've got our main cube here. This is the main part of the gun here, housing the batteries. And we're going to get these little edges on here, these little rounded corners next. So we're going to press 2. You can see we're in edge mode, and we're going to click these edges here, just like this. Click all 4 of them. Hold Shift to select more than one. So again, if you click one, hold Shift, click another, click another, click another, holding Shift, and you've got all of them, right? And you can also let go of Shift, navigate, and then hold Shift again. If you want, if you grab one that you don't want, just hold Control and click it, and it'll get rid of it. So Shift and Control will add and subtract from your selection, just like most programs. And then we're going to press, now one of the things you'll notice is Plasticity likes to just auto-activate tools if it thinks it knows what you want to do. So when you select a face, it automatically activates offset. When you select an edge like this, it automatically activates fillet. If I cancel out of this, if I want to activate fillet, I press B, which is, normally you would do a bevel, what they often call these in programs like Modo is just bevel or edge bevel, but here they call it fillet and chamfer, right? Versus a rounded bevel or a flat bevel. So in Plasticity, you get a fillet or a chamfer depending on which way you drag. If I drag one way, I get that nice rounded fillet, and if I drag the other way, I get that straight edge chamfer. We want a fillet, so I'm just going to drag down something like this, like that, and we'll get a nice sort of rounded edge there, okay? And like I said, when you're done, just hit Enter, and it'll commit that. Now, if I want to change some things here, I can actually, I don't have a history like I would in a procedural program like a Houdini or if you use Mesh Ops in Modo, but I can still adjust these, right? So if I press 3 and go to face, I can select the face here, and I've got this little offset handle. Again, it just auto-activates that tool if you want it. And I can sort of, push it in or out if I want to. Whoops. Push it in or out if I want to change the sort of length of this cube here. So I think it's a little longer than it is tall. So maybe something like this. And then again, hit OK. And then if I want to adjust these fillets here, I can actually select them. It'll bring up that tool handle automatically. And I can continue to sort of adjust it if I want to make a little change. Now, Plasticity is pretty good at letting you adjust fillets like this after the fact. But once you get a couple other fillets and operations on there, you'll lose that ability. Just keep that in mind. So right now, this geometry is pretty nice and clean, and I can do this. But if I start cutting into it and stuff like that, I'm going to lose that ability. But something like this is okay, I think. So hit Enter. We got that. So I'm in face mode, and I'm going to select the front face. I don't want offset face, so I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to press O and go to the offset command. Now, I actually, I kind of wish this was called inset. To me, I'm insetting this more than offsetting it, but just sort of drag, and you'll see that sort of inset, outline there like that. We'll just inset it a little bit like this, maybe a little more. You can also drag on this numeric field here if you want to. Click and drag like that. Something like that. Hit OK. And then I'm going to select the middle face. I'm just going to push it in a little bit like that and hit OK. Now, if you notice on our gun here, there's sort of a little channel there, a little ridge like that. Let me just sort of, so let's actually go to a new tab and just sort of zoom in a little bit. So you can see there's a little bit of a ridge here, and there's a little bit of a chamfer there. So let's do both of those things. So I'm going to do the chamfer first. I'm just going to press 2 to go to edge mode and select one of these edges. Now, if you hold Shift and Alt at the same time and click on an edge adjacent to it, it'll get that whole ring. So if you press Alt and Shift at the same time, Shift will add to the selection, and Alt just kind of, if it's a nice like planar ring of them, it'll just try to grab all of them. And then I'm going to do, the fillet comes up automatically. And this time, instead of doing a nice rounded one, I want to sort of drag into the negative realm and get a bit of a flat chamfer here instead of a rounded fillet, something like that. Hit OK, looks pretty good. And then we're going to do that channel on the side. And so we're going to do an operation here called imprint curve. And the first thing I'm going to do is just go to a side view. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can, up here on the view cube, this is what everybody made fun of Maya long ago when they introduced this feature, but it's actually, got to admit, it's pretty useful. If I click on any of these axes, we'll go to that axis, right? So I click on the X here, it just flips to that right view. You can see it up here. If I click on the Z, it goes to the top, click on the Y, it goes to the back, click on the X, goes to the right again. And you can see it's sort of semi-transparent. You can see that inset we did right there, right? On the front, if you just press Alt, you can then drag and back to perspective, just like that. Now you can also use the keyboard shortcut. So I can press 3, and that puts me in right, or Control 3 will switch it, put me in left, 1 will put me in front, Control 1 back, 2 is, I believe, top. Oh, no, it's 7. 7 is top. Okay, 7 is top, Control 7 is bottom, but we want to go 3 right. Okay, so then we'll select our line here. Just click your line or press Shift-A. That's the keyboard shortcut. It'll snap for you here. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit and find the area we want to do that channel, which is kind of like right around here. Click once, drag down. It'll sort of snap it for you to, it'll sort of lock into place to create a straight line. You'll see it that it's sort of magenta again. You just click and then hit enter again, just to confirm that, one click and then enter, it'll drop the tool and we've got a straight line there. So if I press Alt and just drag, I'll go back into the perspective view here. You can see I've got that, curve, that line right there in the middle. And I'm going to, and I don't know why there's no icon for this operation. Maybe I don't have the latest version downloaded. Maybe they've put it in here. They do have a project curve onto surface, which is I, but we would actually, instead of projecting the curve on the surface, we want to imprint this curve onto the surface. So I'm going to press Shift-I, that does the imprint command. By the way, all the commands are over here, this little dot, dot, dot. You can click there, you get a search bar, and if I start doing, start typing imprint, you'll see imprint curve on body is right there. And that's Shift-I. It would be nice if it showed the, imprint right here. It's Shift-I right here. You can see the keyboard shortcut for it. So this is imprint. And it's telling me to select the target body. So I'm going to select my box right here. Just click on my box. And you'll see what it did. It imprinted this line. You'll see these line of edges, both on the outside and the inside here. Let's hit OK. You can see this right here, right? And so if I press Alt and click it, it'll select that whole line there. I also did it on the inside, which is fine. Alt right there. It's not, that's fine. It's not going to bother us. We're just going to deal with the outside one though. So yeah, that's like imprinting a curve onto a surface. Now we can use this edge to manipulate the geometry, but let's put in one more. So let's go to the side again and select our line. And then I'm going to press G for move. And I'm just going to move it like a little bit to the left. We're just creating the width of our channel, right? Just like this. Hit enter again, or right click, and we've committed that move. And then I'm going to Shift-I imprint again, select my cube again, hit OK again. And now you can see we've got this little channel here we can work with. So I'm going to delete this line. We don't need it. You can hide it if you want to, but I'm just going to delete it. We don't need it anymore. And I'm going to go 3 to face mode. I'm going to select my little polygons, not my polygons, my faces here. I'll probably call them polygons, but they're not. Let me just hide the grid by clicking this button up here so we can get a better view of this. Select all these guys. Offset is this tool is automatically activated since we selected faces. I'm just going to push them in just like this, right? So we've got this little channel here. We're just going to push it in a little bit. We don't want to push it in too much because we'll break into the middle and we'll just like chop that piece out. So just push in a little bit like this. And then when you're happy with it, hit OK. And now we've got this little channel here. Now we can go in and do little roundings on these edges here. And this is where you really sort of need to make a decision. Do we go in and add little micro fillets on all the little hard edges? Or do we do that in the rendering side? So if I'm going to render this in, say, Octane Render in Modo, it has a rounded edge shader, which we can apply to hard edges. It'll just add a nice little rounded edge there during rendering. But if you want to, you can add a little fillet to these as well. It's just there's sort of diminishing returns. For instance, this is a small part of this piece, and so I don't know. Are you going to see like a little edge on there? Maybe, maybe not. But if you want to, you can go in here and hold Alt and press 2. Hold Alt and Shift and click that whole set of edges there. And I'll just do it on the other side as well, just holding Alt and Shift again. I've got all of those. And then just dragging our little tool handle, we can get a little bit of a sort of a micro fillet on there. Okay. And then if I want one on the back, I can just, again, hold Shift and Alt and select these. and start dragging my fillet. And if I want to match that front one, this is a really cool feature. I just come over here, and I just click on it, and it'll match that radius. So now we have a little micro fillet on the back, exactly the same as these little guys right here, and we're looking pretty good. If you really want to go crazy, you can put one here as well, but I'm not. I think this is good enough. Hit OK. Now I think the back of this piece has the 4 batteries in it, so let's hollow it out. So press 3 for face, select the face. We don't want offset, so cancel out of that and press O for the offset tool versus offset face. Again, I'm just going to say one more time, they need to change this to inset and not offset. And you just drag in a little bit like this, like that, and hit OK. Another thing, let me just Control Z to undo that. And let's just go back one, hit escape. When I select this face and I have the offset face tool automatically activate, what you can do instead of hitting cancel and then pressing O, you can just press O to switch tools. Right? Just press O now, it's going to switch from the offset face tool right to the offset tool. I don't have to cancel out of it first, so I think I just do that by habit. But there we go, something like that. Hit OK, select that middle face, let's push it in a decent amount. You can kind of see that, again, that sort of faint line in there in the middle. So let's push it in, not all the way through, but just a little bit. And this will be the sort of container for the 4, power cells, I guess you would call them, for the stun gun. And yeah, there we go. I think we got that first part looking pretty good here. This first part with the star on it, looking pretty good. So it's got some like little, screw, like bolt decals in there. We'll deal with that later. Let's start in now. Let's work on this section here. Let's do this little brass cylinder, and then this one on this side, and then we'll do all these little plates in between that create the stun effect, I guess, and then we'll make a tip and continue on that way. So back over in Plasticity, let's start. Let's name this guy here. Let's just double click on our box over here and call this power housing, something like that. And I always like to just name my stuff to keep it organized. And also you might want to like save it as we're going here. So we'll just call this stun gun rev 2. This will be rev 1 for you guys, but rev 2 for me. Save, okay. Let's come over here and click on the cylinder and just sort of hover over our face here, and you'll see that it's sort of locking to the middle of it right here, right? You'll see this little dot appear and then we're locking to the middle. Click and drag out. Now you can also hold Alt and navigate while you're dragging the radius of this cylinder here. You can go all the way to the edge, but probably just a little bit to the inside. In fact, why don't we just go ahead and click all the way to the edge where it snaps, and we'll adjust this in a minute, and just click once. And now we're going to pull it out. And again, you can press Alt and sort of navigate on this. Now you'll notice this is blue. And what Plasticity is trying to do here is it gives it the option to just, when you're creating a primitive, to either add to the current solid or chop into it. So right now, this is blue, it's set to union. So this, if I finish here and I just hit OK, this will be all part of the same piece. It'll actually weld this piece onto this power housing solid. So it's all one piece. If I use the keyboard shortcut W for difference, you'll notice it turns red. If I drag the other way, you can see it's cutting into that piece. I just chopped a hole into it, right? So it's pretty cool. It has these like live Boolean operations to add or chop into or even intersect. If I use Shift E here, this is the intersection of those two pieces, right? So Q would be add, W would be difference, Shift E, all on the left-hand side of the keyboard, is intersect. So let's go back to W or Q for add. You can see like what we have here, but we don't actually want to add to it. We want a new body. So I'm going to press B for new body. You see it turns gray, and then I'm going to be creating a new solid over here. And so again, we can always readjust this. So just kind of pull it out a little bit, hit OK, and we've got our cylinder right there. And you'll see that it's its own solid over here in the item list, right? So I'm going to move it away from that back piece just a little bit so it's not touching. So I'm just going to press G, that's the move key. Now these are modeled off after Blender's transform keys, G for move, R for rotate, S for scale. I actually don't think they're super great. I know Blender users will probably yell at me for this, but I prefer the Miyamoto way of the WERT, where it's just sort of the home row there, but rather than just using the letter that starts with the word, like what's scale? Well, why not S? Scale starts with an S, so that's got to be the best key for it. I don't think that's what we have. And G, I think of it as go when I'm in plasticity. So press G for move, and then just grab that green Y-axis handle and just move it out just a little bit. So it's just, not touching. It doesn't, just eyeball it. So it's just sort of tucked in there a little bit, but not touching. We don't want it to go on X at all. Zero that out, but just like that, hit OK. Now we can press S for scale and click on those little purple magenta square here, and that'll scale in Z and X simultaneously or proportionally. So you can see I can scale this way. So we can do that just to sort of bring it off that edge a little bit. So scale it down just a little bit. And hit OK. Another thing you can do is just press 3 for face mode, and you can select that face that goes around the whole outside, and you can push that in or out as well. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. If we look at our reference here, it looks like there's sort of a separate piece bolted on. You can see there's a little bit of a gap between this rigid metal and this interior sort of brass disc. So let's just do that. Let's go back to plasticity. First, I'm going to make a bit of a hole in the disc. So I'm just going to press 3, select our face here. And another thing you could do just to isolate this guy, I can hide that housing over here by pressing the eyeball, right? But a really nice way to do this when there's a lot of items in the scene is just pressing the period key on the keyboard, and it'll hide everything. It'll just isolate the selected solid. So you can see where it says isolated here. Press period again, brings everything up, so I don't have to unhide it. So just period, isolated, period, unisolated. It's super useful. You'll use it 100 times in a project. Yeah, anyway. So press 3 for face and select that front face, and then you're going to press O for offset. We're just going to push this in just a little bit like this, and then hit OK. And then we've got our face with the offset tool already active. And I'm just going to push this all the way through. I'm just going to push it all the way through the back and make a hole. Now that's the magic of working with solids. You can do, versus polygons. You can just push a face right through it and you have a hole. So something like that I think looks okay. I'm not sure. Let me just push it back. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be one, but as far as I'm concerned, I think something like that looks good. So let's just do that. Hit OK like that. And then I'm going to do some little fillets on these edges. So press 2 for edge. Click all 4 of the edges here, holding Shift. Grab them all, and then let's just drag these in the positive direction a little bit. Get a little bit of a rounded edge there. Looks good. Okay, and then let's create this separate piece that's sort of it's sort of been lifted off the top, I guess. It's sort of like a wrapper piece of brass is what it looks like. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to press 3 for face. I'm going to select that face there, like that, right? That one face. And then I'm going to press Shift D, and that's going to duplicate it. And it's going to create a sheet. So Shift D, it duplicated it. You can see now I have a category that says Sheets. I have this called Face Sheet 001. So with that selected, let's press S for scale again, and just push in and grab our little magenta square, and I'm just going to pull it off that, just expand it a little bit so there's a bit of a gap there. Not like a huge gap, but whatever. Let's look at it from the front. Here you can kind of see that line there. So let's just make a bit of a gap between the two. Hopefully you can see that black line. It's a little hard to tell, but I'm putting a little bit of a gap between the main cylinder and this little face or the sheet that we pulled off of it. And by the way, a sheet is it's a two-dimensional body. Think of it as described mathematically in 2 dimensions. But we can convert this to a solid by making it 3-dimensional, and we'll do that by thickening it. So with the face still selected, I'm going to go down here, and if you hover over this little icon here, it says thicken a sheet, click it. We get this little tool handle here. I'm just going to drag in. You can see you can thicken it either way. I'm going to thicken it down towards the original cylinder. And I still want a little bit of a gap like that. That's visible. But yeah, I'm just going to thicken it a little bit. And hit OK, and now you'll see that our sheet is now a solid, right? We're still in isolate mode, so I'm going to press period to get out of that and pull back out. And now we've got we got 3 solids. We've got our sort of, we just press 4 to go to solids. We've got our main battery housing. We got this first power cylinder here and the power cylinder wrapper. We'll just call that, we'll just call it power cylinder A, or power cylinder back. How about power cell back? We'll just call it that. Okay, so yeah, whatever, power cell back. We'll just call it that. And this one we'll call, double click it, power cell back wrapper. All right, good enough. Okay, so making some progress. Now let's make the front of this one now, this sort of brass piece right here, which is a little bit similar, but it's got this rounded edge there. And then, yeah, let's do that. And then we'll make these guys in between. So, okay. So let's try something else for that front part. I'm going to create a cylinder here. So click the cylinder. Again, we're just gonna sort of hover over the front here. It'll just automatically snap to the center. It's so nice that Plasticity does this, by the way, because a lot of like polygon modeling programs don't. And I'm guessing part of the reason is since all of these surfaces and solids are defined more precisely mathematically, it's easier for the program to do that. But it's just so nice to like just kind of hover over and just snap in the middle. So I'm going to snap here, and I'm going to drag out, and I'm just going to snap on that first, we just zoom in here, that first edge here of that cylinder, and click, and now I'm going to drag out. And again, remember we've got this union or difference option here where we want a new body. So again, press B, new body, like that. Don't worry about, you can adjust the radius and whatever if you want to a little bit here, but I would say something like this, and then just a little bit flatter. Actually, you know what? I'm going to demonstrate a technique here. So I'm going to make it kind of long like this, and then hit OK, and then G for go or move, and then we're going to move it a little bit away, and enter to confirm that. Now I'm going to 2 for edges and grab this guy, and I'm going to start dragging a fillet there so we can get a nice rounded fillet here like this. And then I'm just going to actually click on the edge of the cylinder like that. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a perfectly rounded top there to our cylinder by using the radius of the cylinder we clicked on. So that's kind of a cool thing with fillet. Again, so if I drag it and I want to match a fillet someplace else, I can do that like this, or I can actually click on the cylinder. It'll match the radius of that cylinder and give me that nice rounded edge like that, which is what I want. So hit OK. We got that. I'm going to press 3 for face and grab this back one and just sort of push it back this direction a little bit and hit OK. Now I think that this guy is maybe, it's kind of hard to tell, but actually, is there like a side view here? Yeah, let's look at this from the side. Thank you, Alexi, for letting us use your work here as inspiration. I feel like I got to keep saying that. It's sort of chopped off there, right? So it's not rounded. So yeah, let's do a cut with a curve, which is something you do a lot in Plasticity. So let's go back to Plasticity. Press 3 to go to the side view, right? And just sort of navigate like this. And then I'm going to press this icon here, or Shift A for this line. I'm just going to chop off the edge of this. So just, zoom in a little bit, click once, drag down so it's sort of magenta, so it's a nice straight line, click again, and enter. Now we have a line. You can press G for move and sort of move it up and down, decide where you want to chop away at this, this sphere here. Or this hemisphere, something like this maybe, like that. I want a decent amount of rounding here. Actually, I'm going to hit enter, leave that there. I'm going to press 4 for bodies, and I'm going to select my body here and press S for scale. And I'm actually going to smush this a little bit like this. I think that's better. Enter. Now 2 for curve, select my curve, G for move, and sort of readjust this, right? I'm going to chop off the end, maybe like that. Enter. And now with the curve, this curve still selected here, I'm gonna press C, that's for cut. Select target bodies. I want to cut this guy, and I select it. When I do, keep an eye on the solids here. select it and hit OK, and it just chopped the end off. Now we've got a new solid here. That's the end, right? Press G, I can move it around. If I look at it, press Alt, and I can see over here in this view, I can move it around. I'm just going to delete it. Don't want that. Select the line, delete that, and now we have that sort of shape we want. I'm going to press 3 for face and select the back face and just push it out a little bit, a little bit thicker on this end. Hit OK. And yeah, this looks pretty good. Let's maybe mess with this a little bit. I'm going to select this, press O, and inset it a little bit like that. Hit Enter, and then select this middle face, and I'm just going to push it all the way through the back to make a hole like this. Hit OK. Now let's look at these two guys. Hide these two guys, the wrapper and the cube, and look at these along Y. So press 1. I want to make sure these faces are roughly the same. So let me press 2, select this edge, hold Shift, select this edge. The fillet tool is automatically activated, so I can just sort of drag. What I want to do is match this, so select there and match that, hit OK, like that, OK. And let's see, how do I make sure these holes are roughly the same size? Let's press 3 for face and select this face. Look along Y here, and I can just push this back. I think they're pretty, you can kind of see the outline here. So, this is, if I move in, you can see this is what I'm adjusting. This is the edge of the fillet, and this is the edge of the hole. And here's the one that's stacked behind it, the edge of the fillet, edge of the hole. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and get these matched up there and hit OK. So that hole that goes through there, that channel's just kind of correct, right? It's about the same on both. There's some dimension tools and some other things I think are maybe I don't want to get into right now. And there's probably some better way to sort of make sure those the same rather than me eyeballing it. But I think it's fine for our purposes. And like I said, there are some dimension tools, which I think I use in the second intro, if you want to look at that one. But this is good enough for now. So let's unhide these guys. So let's get this wrapper right here, pressing 4 for bodies. This wrapper right here, power cell wrapper, we're going to put it over here as well. So I'm just going to Shift D for duplicate. You see you made a new one. And it activated the move tool automatically. I'm just going to move it over here. Just something like this. So I think our cylinder here is a little bit fat, so it's sort of intersecting that wrapper. So I'm going to hide the wrapper real quick. Press 3 for face mode and grab that face right there, and also this sort of rounded face, so those two faces like that. We're just going to sort of push these like this to get them back into place. So turning the wrapper back on, we just sort of zoom in here. I'm going to push these in until you see a little gap up here. There we go, just like that. And then hit OK. And yeah, looking good. We've got a couple wrappers, couple power cells. Let me just select this back face here of the second wrapper and then push it this way. You can actually match faces too. So this is actually interesting. Let's do this. So to get the back of this power cell wrapper, to get the back of this power cell wrapper, this face here, in the same position as this cylinder face, I can use this offset tool to sort of move it around, or I could even press G and use the move tool to sort of move it around. But a really fast way of doing this is to match face. So I select this face, I go down here to this icon right here, that kind of looks like an upside down hat or something, click match face, and then click the face you want to match it to, boom, and it just snaps right there. So looking pretty good. Okay, all right, we're pretty good. Now let's just name these two things. So we call this power cell wrapper. Can actually widen out our item list here. Wrapper, front wrapper, we'll call it. Just double click. Power cell front wrapper, and then this one is power cell front. Double click. Power cell front. Pretty good. Okay, so yeah, we're getting there. We've got this part and this part and this sort of battery housing here. Now let's make these little pieces in between. right here, sort of get this middle part finished up.
Yum, yum.